So this is a little bit, because we're doing introductions, I do have to write down here where you're getting all of the wealth that you'll be using to purchase your home. Mainly, I'm sure you're going to have to work. We'll talk about mortgages later. But you do have to have like sort of an initial investment, right? Sort of a down payment. And having a down payment as someone who's only 6 months into hell, like, did you even land a job yet? Yeah, part of your torture is that you have to apply to at least 3,000 different places before you get one interview. And when you get that interview, of course, they're meant to cancel. But anyway, hi there. Welcome to my office. Come in. Are you my appointment? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, come in, have a seat. I'm sure you're a little bit nervous about this interaction, but it's all going to be okay. I'm totally used to newbies in the space. Yeah, I mean, working in hell, it really makes you super used to incredibly new people and meeting new people constantly, so I hope I can make you feel just a little bit better, okay? Okay, yeah. So, let me introduce myself, okay? I am a realtor from hell. My name is Basil. It's very nice to meet you. You are a little bit, people are talking about you. You are a very interesting person. You have only been here for about 6 months in hell. I remember seeing you come in during orientation. Yeah, and it was, I knew. I told my secretary, I was like, we need to keep an eye on them. They are going to be something. And look at you, here you are. So you're looking for a home, right? Yeah, here in our lovely pastures of hell. And I do have to say, it's a really, really, really big commitment, okay? And so if you have any reservations about the process, we're going to go over it and talk about it. And we're just going to make sure that everything is above board and everything is perfect, okay? Okay. So we're going to start off with some introductions. Then we're going to move on to your budget, what in terms of like what you're willing to pay. And then we're going to go over your needs, right? This is where you're going to tell me your dream home, what you're looking for, that sort of thing. Then we're going to move on to locations, right? Hell has many different biomes. Hell is very diverse. And so we really want to make sure that you fit into the right neighborhood and the right locale, right? We really don't want you to go somewhere and have to move. And we really, there is an initiative to help against against sort of the constant buying and selling of homes, so that you have to worry about getting more money and using homes as sort of an investment. The initiative is new. They don't want you to look at it as an investment. They want you to look at it as your livelihood, right? They want you to think that your home is everything, and that if your home loses value, you should just be beheaded. It's just, and I think I've been championing that for a long time, but it's just an initiative. It's not really in play yet. So until then, you don't have to worry about it. Okay. Okay. So, a little bit about me as a hell realtor, why I got into this business. I think that's a really good question for you to ask me, because as a hell realtor, I really wanted to do good. It really, it sickens me to see all the different beings being tortured, and they don't have shelter. They don't have homes. That's incredibly selfish. And how in the world are they allowed to be out in the world and take from hell's resources? I mean, I think that if they all have homes, then it would just be more humane, and that way the torture is a little bit more precise. Now, what I'm going to say here might be a little bit controversial. However, I think it needs to be said, and that is, just because working from home is really popular. Doesn't mean that you have to forego going into the office. Now, how does that relate? That relates because when you have homes in hell, going into the office feels much more like torture. If you live at the office, if you don't have a home to go back to, the office can feel like a shelter itself. And, we can't have that here. Everything needs to feel just a little bit worse. Okay, so just letting you know that. And so, I, as a do-gooder, I'm just trying to really hard to do that. I also, this is going to have to come up a little bit later, but I just wanted to make a little note because you are new. Our big boss here, Big Daddy Devil, he is very strict. He's very into everything being on time, everything being meticulous. I've worked under him for a very long time. He does run this firm, and it's incredibly sort of special. He does sort of run the firm in the sense that he thinks of his workers as family, and I think there's nothing more devilish than the owner thinking that their workers are family. Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to let you know he is very, very strict and he will be overbearing in this process. But just know that you have no choice. Okay? So next, okay, so this is a little bit, because we're doing introductions, I do have to write down here where you're getting all of the wealth that you'll be using to purchase your home. Mainly, I'm sure you're going to have to work. We'll talk about mortgages later. But you do have to have like sort of an initial investment, right? Sort of a down payment. And having a down payment as someone who's only 6 months into hell, like, did you even land a job yet? Yeah, part of your torture is that you have to apply to at least 3,000 different places before you get one interview. And when you get that interview, of course, they're meant to cancel. But anyway, I have a sneaking suspicion that you are a sugar baby. Okay, yeah, you are. Okay, so I just wanted to mention here then, because I thought this was the case. A lot of people find themselves in your situation where they're sort of a sugar baby and they have a sugar daddy or sugar mommy, whatever it is, or whoever they are. I just wanted to give a little bit of a warning. There is a little bit of a stigma against those kinds of relationships. And I'm not bringing this to you because I'm judging you. I'm saying that here in hell, if you have that kind of relationship, you have to be very careful because love could come. And if love comes, then your reputation's ruined. You cannot be seen falling in love. Absolutely not. So just make sure that the sugar baby, sugar daddy situation, sugar mommy situation, glucose guardian, that sort of thing, make sure that it is strictly professional. Okay? Okay. All right. So next, let's talk about the budget. Okay? So in human terms, since you were a human before, can you tell me what range were you looking for in terms of price? Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. So that is sort of 300 to 400, a little low, but I guess it is sort of your first time here in hell. Absolutely. And okay, so if I were to convert that for you in hell terms, that would be 400 years of servitude. Now, we'll talk about servitude later, but that is sort of, 300 to 400 years, give or take a few hundred years. Now, servitude, you might not know it. You'll know it as sort of like a mortgage. Servitude is just the way that we handle things here. Slavery just never fell out of fashion here. So it is very, very common. And I'm not saying that you're going to be, you clock in and you clock out, you just sort of, it's not slavery per se. It's more like extreme worker, what's the word I'm looking for? exploitation. That's what I'm looking for. Extreme worker exploitation. And if that feels a little bit too vague for you, then it is sort of like a slave labor situation. So you are going to get paid for it, but it's so minor that it's really not worth even thinking about. But anyway, so let's talk about the lenders, right? The people that you would potentially be serving, right? Of course. One of the first would be the big man himself, the big devil. The pros is he's very upfront. He's very capitalist. He's very strict with the rules. You're going to have to at least take a few weeks to read over all of the contracts that he'll give you. He'll definitely sue you to get the maximum amount of your time. However, and that's a pro. Like he's very upfront about it. Cons, he does have some way of introducing sort of a fun kind of torture, and some people really, how do I say this? Because I it's been such a long time since I've been in your position, but some people enjoy a more traditional torture, right? A more missionary torture. But he tends to enjoy the more risque torture, right? The torture that is a bit more not taboo per se. He's the one that's in charge, but some people are just a little bit more straight and narrow, right? Get married before you get tortured and that sort of thing. So if you are perhaps a little bit more conservative, a little bit more, maybe not conservative, but just like a little bit more shy, it's going to be hard for you. You're going to have to give into some tortures that are a little bit more difficult. Another thing is that he is a nudist, so he will be nude all the time. If this, again, rubs up against anybody that's a little bit shy, a little bit more of a traditionalist, you're going to feel a little... Don't worry, you get used to it, and the thing is just dragging on the floor, and it just becomes sort of like a little dust sweep, right? You're just like, oh, I just dropped some crumbs. Oh no, it's okay. His thing will sweep it up for me. That doesn't matter, right? Because if you are shy, you're going to have a problem with it, and it's going to take you a little bit longer to get used to it, right? And if you're going to spend a lot of time with him, and it's just, we just need to find out the perfect fit for you, yeah? Okay, and so next, another big lender, surprisingly, is Judas. A pro for Judas is that he is very under wraps. He does not like to speak others' business. He's very quiet, very secretive. He doesn't like to say very much. And unfortunately, the big man himself cannot get rid of Judas because, there's something about how biblically he was brought here by God. People have a lot of different sayings about him, and the stories are a little bit muddled. Excuse me. Yeah, I know I haven't had my coffee yet. So, he is very under. Plus, he has a lot of fun stories. If you really wanted to learn about the types of people that he knew on Earth, or just all the sorts of things that he's experienced. It's so funny. He is a riot. I will say that. So these are really good pros to go with Judas for your servitude, to get a home. Cons is that he's very bitter. Okay, it's very obvious that Judas failed in whatever his mission was when he was on Earth. So he does sort of feel really bitter about it. He has sort of a chip on his shoulder. And I don't know if it's because of that, but he also has really bad breath. And because he's very secretive, there's a lot of whispering going on, a lot of coming close to your ear and just sort of whispering to you. And it can get a little oh my God, brush your teeth every now and then. We have tar for you to brush your teeth with. What is wrong with you? Anyway, the third option, these are of course all options that I would recommend. So the third option is succubi or incubi, depending on your preferences. A pro for succubi and incubi is that they can be very fun. You know, it's really, really fun to be with sort of that kind of devil that's very promiscuous, that really wants to just sort of like have a good time and have a party, right? Sort of like a drunk friend all the time, right? And you're the sober one. That's the vibe the entire time. What's interesting about that, though, is that they can destroy your very essence at any point in time. They're very powerful, but because they have that kind of power and they get very, very drunk, they're very sweet as well. So these are all pros that, depending on the person, I would definitely say if you're more on the like shy, they'll take care of you, right? A con for them is that they never tire out. Okay? Like, they're always on. They're always drunk. They're always ready to party and flirt and do the things that they do, which I'm not really going to get into because, it's just not appropriate in this kind of conversation. And, if I do get into it, then you might get a little bit too excited and the big man will get mad at me because I drove you towards them and not towards him. So just, think about your options, either the big man, Judas, or Succubi and Incubi, right? So those are your options in terms of mortgages. Next, let's go over to your needs. This is going to be really fun for you. Now you can tell me what you really want in a home, right? And, you don't have to think of this as your forever home. Like I said, the initiative is not in play yet. And I'm required to tell you that this can just be a starter home. So what are you looking for? Okay, so you're looking for a 3-pit, 2.5 ditch home. Absolutely. You're shooting for the stars a little bit for a starter home. I will say that. And then number 2, what else are you looking for? Okay, and you definitely want a pool of fire for potential kids. Absolutely. There's nothing that kids in hell love more than a pool of fire. It's so fun just to sort of like splash the fire around, it's a fun day for a winter afternoon. And next, you want great views of the soot fields. Absolutely. You want to be able to see the kinds of torture that's happening out there and the kinds of things. Yeah, absolutely. And it's, this is where you need to tell me everything that you want so that I can get you as many things as possible. You let me worry about if it's possible. You just think about what you want. Yeah. Okay. All right. And next, what else? Okay. So you want enough space for a rooster coop. Absolutely. Not a chicken coop, but just a rooster coop. Absolutely. Yeah. You are picking up on a lot of the subtleties in hell. Yeah, a rooster coop is one of the most evil things that you could have. I mean, just imagine all of your neighbors waking up because of the roosters. I mean, genius. Okay. Okay, and what else? Okay, you do want either Dagger floors or Lego floors. Absolutely. Those are very in vogue right now. I believe cockroach floors are a little bit out. The carcasses for cockroaches are a little bit hard to come by, especially here in hell, because they're just so hard to kill in sort of on Earth. So they were sort of seen as the diamonds of hell, but now it's sort of like, it's a little bit gauche, it's a little tacky. Yeah, I think Lego floors are definitely a more upscale version of that. Okay, and then you just want to make sure you have 2-foot ceilings. Absolutely. This is so that you're constantly bending. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Is that it? Is that all you can think of? Okay, well, if you have anything else, please let me know. I'll put it down so that I can find the stuff for you, okay? Okay. Okay, and then lastly, let's talk about locations. So, as you know, here in hell, we have 9 different layers of hell. It's sort of like a cake, right? You have sort of one layer, and then you have sort of this nice fine atmosphere layer, and then the next layer, and then it just goes on and on and on. So it's just really good. So the first layer of hell is going to be Limbo. I would recommend the neighborhood of Limbo, particularly for people that they just want to stay to themselves, I think that if you find a home in Limbo and you get sort of the succubi or incubi, it can be a very, very good match because even though they're very drunk, even though they're very rowdy, they're very insular, right? They'll stay within the home with you, or you'll have to go to them, and so it's not obscene. In that way, but of course, Limbo does provide time works a little bit differently in Limbo. Time, it goes by a fourth as fast as on Earth, and so everything sort of moves really slowly. People talk really slowly, and everybody's a little bit of a sloth sort of thing. Yeah. So, and of course, next we have the Lust neighborhood. That's going to be a very windy neighborhood, very tornado-y, hurricane-y. These are for people that feel like they really, really love just having a lot of white noise, the wind and the hurricanes that happen sort of outside. They're going to be, sometimes they can be a little bit scary, but for a lot of people that end up choosing to stay there, it's going to be incredibly soothing, right? Just imagine the winds sort of going off, taking your roof off, murdering many different people, slicing them, whatever, what have you. And of course, lust, in turn, the reason why that is just because it's meant to make you realize, just sort of, it's meant to make you realize just how much you are lustful, right? I don't know the specific mechanics about it, but that's just sort of how it works in that neighborhood. And, I do think it's a historical neighborhood, actually. Yeah, I don't know if lust is that big of a, I'll look into it for you if you'd like. Okay, yeah, I can put it down. Absolutely. Okay. The next one, this is a really nice neighborhood. Gluttony is a very good neighborhood. It's very wintry. It's very Christmas. So if you really love the vibes of Christmas, it sort of take everything that you hate about Christmas and put it into one neighborhood, and that is Gluttony, right? This is where you're going to have everybody that just wants everything, right? They want gifts. They want everything. They want money. They want everything. I keep saying they want everything, and that's just because it's so true. They do want everything. Judas is not very fond of the Gluttony neighborhood, mostly because of the Christmas association. So if you do plan on going with Judas, I will say that he doesn't prefer to help people out with his servitude, with people serving him when they plan on living in Gluttony. So I'm just letting you know in terms of that. And the winters are, it's very cold, very chilly, very icy, but it's very mild. It's if you step outside, you will freeze, but on your way to freezing, you may as well just make a snowman, right? And, put a little carrot on. So yeah. Next, of course, we do have greed. That is where all of the money grubbers tend to be. Yeah. So this is what I'll say. Do you have cousins? Yeah. Okay. So think about every cousin you hate. They're in that neighborhood. Yeah. Greed. It's really, really sad. The reason why that is just sort of this weird time dilation and space time where if you decide to go there, you're dooming all of your cousins to also be there. So it's a very family friendly neighborhood. But if you hate your family, then it's not the place for you. Okay. Next, of course, we do have anger. The anger neighborhood is very interesting. It was sort of settled on the River Styx, and they're constantly battling. I think there was a little bit of an issue where one family was like, oh, we own all this land. And then the other family was like, well, we own all this land. And by land, I do mean sort of the soot fields, right? And so one family ended up killing the other family. And so now they are the overlords. They're incredibly evil. And I think that everybody bows down to them, but because of the nature of how they got the land, they're being challenged pretty frequently. So if you're really into a sort of a very active neighborhood, I would say that that's incredibly a popular option. Sort of active, if you're a gym bro, if you're really into fitness, I think that's a really good. Anger is a very good neighborhood for you to be in. Okay, so next, of course, we do have heresy. This neighborhood is particularly for people that really hate change. There's it's all on fire. It's a very classic sort of fire situation. However, I would say that most people that go there feel like they need to go there because that's what hell is supposed to be, constant burning. And they just haven't opened their minds to the idea that hell could be much more than that, And so I would say that if you have an open mind, if you feel like you're a little bit more on the left side of things, if you feel like you're a little bit... I don't know, you're a bit open-minded, right? You have empathy. I would say that you would be sorely, I, as your realtor, would say that you shouldn't go to heresy for sure. Yeah. Okay. So I'll just ask that, yeah. Okay, and so next we can go to violence. Violence is a very, very interesting neighborhood because violence, you would think that anger is what violence would be based off the names, but the violence neighborhood has evolved. The violence neighborhood is now mainly a harpy refuge. The harpies sort of stay there. Anybody that goes there gets attacked by the harpies, which is why it's called violence. Most people that end up going to that neighborhood want to take care of the harpies, and by care I do mean kill. There are some people that want to take care of them in the typical sense of the word care, but it never works out very well. There is one though. I don't know if he's doing very well. I did sell him a home there. I should check up on him. It doesn't matter though, because you are not going to live there, because I don't think that you'd want to be near harpies now, would you? Maybe you do. Okay. Well, let's see about that. Okay. And then the next one, of course, is the fraud neighborhood. The fraud neighborhood, of course, is where your Mark Zuckerbergs, your Elon Musks, your billionaires are going to be living, in the fraud area. It's if you're into that lifestyle, I would say you can go there for sure. It is torture. I personally don't like going there because when I do go there and I see them, I sort of, when you get to my level, you do get some access to destroying some souls, and it's hard for me not to press that button, So whatever the case is for you and what you think, I'm certain that a place like that, it has very limited space. Okay, I just need you to understand it has very limited space. And so if you're planning on moving there, you're going to have to make an appeal to every single billionaire that already lives there. And they're going to have to make an exception for you. So I can totally get a head start on that process if you're really dead set on moving there. But, there are more open options, there are more open options is what I'll say. Okay. And lastly, of course, there is the neighborhood of treachery. This is, of course, just a very large wasteland of, it's ice. It's not really snow. It's not so much, it's just pure ice, right? And one of the reasons why I suggest going to the Wasteland is that it's very big on space. Now, I do understand there aren't a lot of things to do in this Wasteland, but it's just, I think it's up and coming. And I think that it's one of those areas that you're going to regret not buying if you don't go now. Treachery, it's very historical. It's very old. Treachery, I think it was established during like the Middle Ages of Earthen years. But I would say that, it's been neglected for a very long time. And if you want to do the most devilish thing and gentrify the area, I would say go for it. I don't really know the people that are there now, but who cares? You want to be evil, you want to go there. So this is sort of the thing that you want to do. So those are your options. Limbo, lust, gluttony, greed, anger, heresy, violence, fraud, and treachery. So which of them would you want? Okay. So those are good options, I would say. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I give my recommendations, but I never judge people for choosing what they want to choose, because I didn't land in hell for judging people. No, I landed in hell for murdering people. So now that we're here and we're at the end, I'm just going to have to tell you that it was so lovely to meet you. I think that you're a very special person. Steer clear of love. Do not go near love when you are it's the worst thing to do in hell. I promise you. The Big Daddy does not like it. Yeah. Okay. All right then. Well, I will get started on looking for your homes, and then I'll send you some, I'll just send you some correspondence to let you know what I found, and then you can let me know if you wanted to tour any of the places. Yeah, you do have to understand that if you tour any of the places, you are, committing at least a couple of your lives there. Yeah, you're not quite used to it yet, but yeah, when you die here, you are, of course, reincarnated so that you can die again. So you have to at least die a couple of times in each home just to get a feel of it. If you're going to die there all the time, then what's the point, right? Like, what's the point of not trying it? It's like going to a home on Earth and not sleeping there, right? Like, it's yeah. All right, then. Well, I will talk to you later then. Bye-bye.